I just got finished watching Toy Story 4, and I wanted to talk about it. This is going to be technically a spoiler-free review, but if you're just like, Kevin, I don't want to know anything about this movie, maybe don't watch. If you want to just know what I think of it, it's great. If you love the other movies, go see the movie. It's fantastic. It's a really good movie, but I've got more to say about it right after this quick commercial. Hey, do you like watching movies? Of course you do. Why would you be watching my channel if you didn't like watching movies? Duh. Next time you are going to go see a movie at the theaters, why don't you go to my link, saygoodnightkevin.com/fandango, and buy your tickets from there, and then you'll be helping out your favorite YouTube reviewer. Say goodnight, Kevin. All right, Toy Story 4. How long has it been? I should have checked this before I started this video. It has been 9 years since Toy Story 3 came out. That's insane. So the movie begins 9 years earlier. I actually don't know what year this is supposed to take place because it says 9 years earlier and you're at Andy's house. So maybe these are events that take place. Well, I guess now that I think about it, the movie isn't supposed to take place 9 years after Toy Story 3 because Andy went to college and gave the toys to Bonnie, who is now the one who owns the toys, and she's just starting kindergarten. So this must take place immediately, pretty close to following Toy Story 3. Anyway, much like many Pixar movies, they start off with a kind of a vignette that gets you crying right at the beginning. So it's really sad because Bo Peep is leaving, given away. Woody doesn't get a chance to say goodbye, so then he goes to say goodbye, and she's like, hey, toys get lost all the time. You could come with me if you want. And Woody's like, no. Kind of sets up that Woody is the type of guy who is faithful. He has loyalty, and so he stays with Andy, and you're crying. It's very sweet. So she's gone, and then it cuts over to how things are today, which I guess is a while ago. Bonnie is going to kindergarten. She doesn't want to go to kindergarten. She wants to take a toy with her, and she's not allowed. Woody, he's kind of in a place at this point where he's struggling with his identity. Not that he hasn't been in that place before. He's struggling with being needed, as we all do. You know, he wants to take care of people and kind of having this midlife crisis. He had this great purpose, but it doesn't seem like anybody wants him to fulfill that purpose. So that kind of sets up for this emotional journey that he takes throughout the film. While at kindergarten, Woody secretly, covertly takes these pieces of trash and kind of sets them during art class. So Bonnie ends up making what we saw in the trailer, Forky. It's kind of funny because I jokingly talked about the sentientness of the toys and what does it really mean to be a toy. And they deal with that a little bit where since he's made of trash, it's kind of a Frankenstein type situation. I belong in the trash. I'm trash. He keeps on trying to go in the trash. And Woody kind of takes it upon himself because Bonnie loves Forky so much, becomes the guardian of Forky. Not guarding him from anything other than guarding him from himself because he keeps on trying to throw himself away. You really see kind of this aspect of Woody, but you feel for him, but everybody's like, dude, what are you doing? Like, you've gone too far at this point. Thus, Forky goes missing, and we saw this in the trailer. It's kind of a wild ride to get Forky back to Bonnie because Forky is clearly who Bonnie loves the most. That's how kids are. They'll latch onto something. There's kind of the joke, you buy your kids this expensive toy for Christmas and they play with the box, you know? Forky is hilarious. He's a really funny character. At first, I was like, this is gonna get really old, him trying to throw himself away. Fortunately, they get out of that shtick pretty quickly. He's just funny. He's got these wild eyes, the crazy eyes, and his pipe cleaner arms that he keeps on falling apart, and, you know, it kind of reminds me a little bit of whenever Woody was like, no, Buzz is right here. And he's like got his arm and everybody's like, oh, what's wrong with you? That is sick. So this movie is really funny. It looks amazing. It harkens very much back to the old Pixar movies. So I loved it. I was cracking up in the theater. I was crying in the theater. There's a point where I got really teared up. I loved it. Now, having said that, the movie isn't perfect, but they're kind of nitpicks. So there's a few aspects that I think could have gone wrong, and in some ways, and I think some people could argue, did go wrong. First off, this suffers from the same thing that a lot of sequels suffer from. I always think of the movie Speed 2. And not always. I don't always think of that movie. Come on. And there's this one phrase that they say in the first Speed. Relationships built on tragedies never work. They kind of take that one line that was said one time or two times in the first movie, and they make that kind of the basis of the second movie. Like, that's become her life motto. Like, Speed 2 is a terrible movie in many regards, but that was just one thing that stuck out to me, and it opened my eyes to something that happens a lot in sequels. You kind of have this one thought, and they make that such a huge, important part of the life motivation of the characters in the sequel. This movie kind of does that, where there's almost a mysticism to this kind of need to get back to the kid. Even though it was there in the first movie, now it's become almost a religion. Like the love, it's less of a friendship and more of like the purpose of a toy is to bring happiness to the child. It's almost too much. It isn't too much, but you just sense it, almost this self-reverence. There's also kind of this weird attraction that every kid has towards Woody. Every kid that finds Woody is like, whoa, this doll. When Woody's kind of an old doll, like why does everybody love him so much? I don't know, maybe he has the Force. The other thing is Bo Peep. Again, could have gone too far. Some may argue does. I guess this is a little bit of a spoiler, but I've got to talk about it. Eventually, Woody comes across Bo Peep again. I'm sure you were expecting that. I have not read any reviews about this, and I know I'm a little late in this review, but my guess is I think people might get upset about this. So I'm going to qualify this by talking about why I don't think you need to get upset. Bo Peep basically has been living as a rogue. She's got kind of this I don't need no man attitude, but it's more of a I don't need no human attitude. She doesn't need a kid. She's kind of become a bit of like the girl from Brave, I feel like. And the reason why I think people might get upset is because they might say, well, she's just a feminist and this is feminist agendas being pushed. But I know girls like Bo Peep in this. There's humor in the fact that Bo Peep was always like prissy, bonnet wearing, pretty Barbie doll-esque type character, and now she's been out in the wild and she's learned to kind of fend for herself, and it's funny. I think it sets up for a lot of comedy. It lends to kind of seeing this side of Woody where he has this faithfulness and this loyalty, and it's not saying that loyalty is bad, but it is saying that maybe at some point you have to move on from one season of your life to another season of your life. I think that is interesting. And finally, the thing that I really think people could complain about is the fact that this is kind of the same as all the other movies. So this is kind of a yin and a yang. We have an expectation, I think, of Toy Story, which is somebody gets lost and then they have to go and find him and get him back. Part of me wishes that they would explore the world of Toy Story more in a different way. They do in a lot of the shorts. It feels a little bit like the repetitiveness of Star Wars. That doesn't make those not enjoyable. And what I find interesting is how Pixar is able to kind of rehash the same story over and over again, but make it feel fresh and new and enjoyable each time. All three of those things that I said were bad also serves as a testament to how good Pixar really is. This movie still pulls it all off very well. Oftentimes sequels will be a shell of what the previous movie was. Moments where I'm like, this is about to get too sappy. I still feel like it's done with class and pizzazz and finesse, simply because Pixar really know what they're doing when they're telling stories. Not saying every Pixar movie's good, but this is truly, I think, a return to form. Would I have wanted something different? Have I wanted something different? I think so. I think 2 and 3 are pretty funny and pretty emotional. If this was the sequel to 2, like if this was Toy Story 3, then this would be a great movie, and I'd be like, oh man, Toy Story 3, fantastic. But Toy Story 3 does exist, so this almost just seemed unnecessary. But to contrast that, a lot of times what sequels don't get is the characters. Like, characters will be more exaggerated. You look at Jack Sparrow in Jack Sparrow 2 and 3. It's not even called Jack Sparrow. It's Pirates of the Caribbean. They're always like more. Now I'm Jack Sparrow, but I'm even more Jack Sparrow. If you love hanging out with the Toy Story toys, this movie does not miss the mark. They nail that so well. So in the end, what I will say is this movie shows that Pixar still gets it, but it doesn't do anything more. This is as good as all the other Toy Story movies, but it's just that. And maybe that's all it needs to be. I enjoyed it. That's my thoughts about the movie. I actually have a lot more thoughts that I think I'll be talking about on my next episode of The Inner Tube next week. So if you want to check that out, please go and check that out. I give this movie a lot of toys. Out of toys. Hey, once again, if you're going to go see a movie and you love my channel and you want to support it and you don't want to give to my Patreon, then you can go to saygoodnightkevin.com/fandango and buy your tickets there. That way you can support my show by buying something you would have bought anyway. It's the perfect scenario. Well, if you do want to pledge to my Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/saygoodnight Kev. And subscribestar.com/SayGoodnightKevin. That really helps out the show, lets me keep doing this thing. Big shout out to the people who pledged there: Jacob and Emily Rugrock, Amanda Stewart, the Ask a Christian Counselor podcast, the Voicey Here YouTube channel, and brand new this month, the author of Paranorma Volume 1, an epic from the Metascript Guild. That's a book that you can check out on Amazon. It's linked in the description. In fact, all of the shows that I mentioned are linked in the description. Be sure to check them out. Thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. You know, I haven't really mentioned they also have a bad guy, because I think part of it is it's a little bit of a rehash of the other bad guys that we always have in the other two sequels. That being said, I think something that Pixar does well is they're able to create bad guys that you understand their motivation, and they're not just strictly evil. And this girl, the bad person in this movie, has a bit of a redemption moment. You really do feel for her and you understand her motivation. I think that's pretty complex, especially for a kids movie.